Hello, hello. Yeah, just a quick one this afternoon. I'm actually nipping out very soon. So I just thought I'd do this very quickly. It came to my attention yesterday. I don't normally do stuff about party politics, but it was interesting to find out yesterday that Ben Habib had resigned from Reform UK. I get asked this occasionally. Do you support Reform UK? Like people used to ask me, do you support UKIP? No, I don't support either. Um, there are reasons why that is, but we'll just have a quick look at this Ben Habib situation, particularly with the leadership of the Farage Tice combo at the top there. Actually, in terms of the people they had, I thought that Ben Habib was without doubt the best of a bad bunch in that respect. He was on television quite a few times, and he always acquitted himself very well in terms of he had a seriousness about him and a kind of an intellectual robustness. He still does. He's not dead. Sorry, sorry Ben, if you're watching. But he had a sort of it has a sort of a seriousness and intellectual kind of yeah. He's like a formidable debater. And he's somebody who he's very together intellectually. You get that sense with him. He has he's really thought his politics out. He knows what he stands for, and that means that he's resilient and robust under pressure. Right? Which a lot of people you can see that, and in the debates that he had, particularly with people particularly on the stuff like wokery, he was winning those arguments. Very decisively because his ideas were just more coherent and they were more together, and I just felt that he was of all of them he had something very it was just very logically consistent, and I like that about Ben Habib. Even though we probably disagree with each other about a great deal. On a great deal of subjects, a great many subjects. There was something you kind of respected him. If you were in an argument with him, you had a formidable opponent, I think. And I'm not surprised in a way that he has left Reform UK. In fact, I'm sort of surprised that he stuck around as long as he did, because he was really on about 2 points. There were 2 points on which I think he was at odds with the party generally, and he was absolutely correct about both, to be fair. One was that he wanted to sort of intellectualise the party in the sense that, I was coming to this at the end of the video as well, there was no coherent sense of what reformism was. It seemed very much to be based on the mood swings of Nigel Farage. It seemed to me that policy and the direction of travel of the party was based on sort of what side of the bed Nigel Farage got out of that morning. Well, it's not a sustainable model for running anything. And Ben Habib wanted there to be a sort of reformism, a raison d'etre for why that party existed, and what they were clearly for and what they were clearly against. Now, there's obvious benefits to that down the track, and the lack of it actually is a big part of the reason why they've run into this trouble with candidates and things like that, because when you have that kind of raison d'etre about it, you people who are joining you have to understand it for a start. There's a kind of quality control on it. If you have an intellectual kind of base to why you exist and what you're about, then look, people who are just generically angry or anti-establishment or whatever, no, it won't do actually. Are your beliefs broadly in line with those of the party or not? And if they're not, then please consider joining somebody else. Mr. Angry cannot join you just because he's Mr. Angry. Right? Yes, I know they've got to 100,000 members, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's not coherent, and without something underpinning that, and without some sort of intellectual reason why you're in business in the first place, you're not going to keep those 100,000 people, or you're just going to end up with a bunch of people fighting each other, falling out all the time. So you've got that. And the other thing you wanted to do, he was talking about democratising the party. Well, And that's not just in terms of decision making. That is, I mean, that is absolutely about, you know, this is something Farage has always done. He's always made his organisations about him. They've always been the cult of Nige, right? And there's never been any oxygen or any room for anybody else. You know, he's a bit narcissistic, Nigel Farage, if we're absolutely honest. He likes to be the centre of attention, and he likes to, you know, by the time he's had his bit of the stage, there's not a lot of stage left for anybody else. It's always been that way. And whenever someone else has arrived, going right back to Robert Kilroy, still 20 years ago, you know, whenever there's been someone else who's threatened to take the stage off him, he's moved against them. And Ben Habib, what have Ben Habib and Robert Kilroy still got in common? Yeah, there you go. There's a Venn diagram with a twist. So you know, you've seen this, and you've seen it with Douglas Carswell. You've seen it with Suzanne Evans. You've seen him doing that to her. He's always taken out people who were seen as a threat, people who might take the publicity and the limelight away from him, or even try to share it with him. No. It's always got to be about Nigel. But the other thing that Ben Habib was saying with the democratising point is, look, it can't be. We look at these people at the top of Reform UK. It just mathematically and in terms of just sheer biology, they're going to die eventually, right? It isn't a sustainable model. It cannot be the Tyson Farage show forever. There has to be a pathway for younger people to join your party and get experience and become activists in the first instance, and then maybe stand as candidates for the council or whatever. And in the fullness of time, by the time they're sort of in the mid-30s, hopefully, they're ready for at least consideration for a position of leadership, or maybe running for Parliament or whatever. You have to have that conveyor belt coming through. It's, in order to be a sustainable organisation that can last, 50, 100 years, you want young people to join you. That's the thing. This is the problem the Conservative Party have got. They're literally dying, right? So absolutely, Ben Habib was correct on both these counts. They needed an intellectual foundation, and they needed democratising in the sense that, yes, there needed to be opportunities for other people besides Nigel Farage and Richard Tice. It can't be there. It can't be there till fiefdom for all eternity. So that's absolutely correct. And the other thing about Ben Habib that makes him rather interesting is that we were talking about two lies fallacies the other day. And I think Ben Habib is almost like a kind of one-man expose of the problem that outfits like UKIP, Brexit Party, Reform have got. They're on a false paradigm about politics, about how they work and what they should be appealing to. So I'll call this the Godfrey Bloom Foundation, or the Godfrey Bloom Formulation even. Godfrey Bloom, you wouldn't have donate money to that, would you? I think you know what you'd spend it on. But the Godfrey Bloom Formulation, have you ever... I had the misfortune of listening to Godfrey Bloom not so long ago. I can't think why, but I think he had somebody on it. It seemed an interesting thing to hear out, just so I could understand what was going on. But I mean, Bloom's always been somewhat dim-witted and simple, and he had this thing in his mind that you're either professional politicians or you are you're the lads down the boozer, and you're putting your manifesto on the back of a fag packet while getting pissed and watching the rugger, and they're the choices, and it's one or the other. They're the only two games in town. Do you want to be a professional politician, or do you want politics to be one big laugh like life is, And that's one of the things that annoys me about Farage and his cronies. They've always got this kind of total lack of seriousness about them. Like life is one big giggle. Well, no, we all like a laugh, but you have got to take life seriously every now and then. And that's kind of the problem. And this is the Godfrey Bloom thing, and he was lamenting the fact that they were bringing professional people in. And even yesterday, Reform were all about the fact they've gone past 100,000 members. Well, what do you do? But how many of them are going to do anything useful? How many of them are going to be allowed to do anything useful other than praise the Lord, and praise the great leader? How many of them are going to be having to say anything or have an opinion of their own. So we have we have them having this press conference, and they're talking about professionalising the party, right? So what we're talking about, we're going to become professional politicians now. They've had all this trouble with, candidates not being vetted properly and coming out with obscenity and talking about shooting people and that kind of thing. And they've had that kind of, that kind of pub loudmouth thing going on. Well, that's what happens. That's what happens when you go down the Godfrey Bloom route. That's what you get. They're the kind of candidates you end up with. You end up with loudmouths and idiots, coming out with that kind of nonsense. What you actually want to do, and this is where the thing falls down really, which is where you're onto a two lies fallacy, is these two groups of people, professional politicians and the pub bore, and that's what Farage and Tice are. They are pub bores, right? And this is politics for pub bores. That's what Ford have become, and it's what Ben Habib has walked away from. They actually have far more in common with each other than you would think. They're both kind of empty, vacuous. They're actually kind of empty vessels making a lot of noise. They're both engaged in a kind of word salad, and once you get beyond it, there's nothing underneath it. It's just the word salad of the pub bore is probably a little bit more entertaining than the professional politicians say on Question Time or whatever. And actually, the reality is that what you want is you want to have an intellectual basis, a raison d'etre for your party, right? This will keep the wrong people out. Do you understand what you are doing? Are you broadly aligned with it? Right. Do you understand? Right. It can't be a vehicle for angry people. That can't be the reason that you exist. And two, you want competent, capable people who have thought this through, who do know what they are talking about in the broad sense, but they are, they're not professional politicians. That's the thing about professional politicians. A lot of them, they're vacuous, they're empty, because so few of them have got any life experience. And they haven't really thought about anything deeply, and so you don't want that really. You don't want sort of these two competing forms of shallowness. If we must have political parties, and I'm not convinced that we must, but if we must have political parties, then they have to. If you're going to form a challenger party, actually Ben Habib was on the right track, and in many ways he was. It was far too good for a sort of ragtag and bobtail outfit like Reform, and so it's not surprising. But the one thing that's very, very interesting really is that he didn't manage to get elected at the last election, but Farage, Tyson, that other pub bore, Lee Anderson, did. God, he's not the sharpest shot in the coal mine, is he? Crikey, you stick dynamite in those ears and do no damage at all. But that's the thing with outfits like Reform, is why they're not going to go anywhere, and it's just following them on. There's a pattern with Farage, isn't there? Where he's done it with UKIP, he's done it with the Brexit Party, and now he's doing it again. And you wonder if maybe there is some dark, sinister reason why that's happening. Is he being promoted by somebody to take up bandwidth and get in the way of something real, that could really go somewhere? So there were my thoughts on it. Really, in some ways, it's not surprising that he's gone. It's surprising that he stuck around as long as he did, and it'll be interesting to see what he does next. If anything. So thanks for listening, and comments appreciated, and we'll catch up soon. Cheers. Thank you very much.